Okay, welcome to this short video workshop on how to start your own podcast for free. So I've had a fair bit of interest on this in terms of people who've been interested, but maybe a little bit of intimidation or a little bit of curiosity about how to actually get started and what it entails. So we're going to jump straight into that. So why should you bother listening to me? Why have I got anything good to say? Well, I'm the host of the Athletic Evolution podcast. I'm the founder of Athletic Evolution and the Athlete Academy. I'm also a lead strength and conditioning coach for the Scottish Rugby Academy in Caledonia. And I've previously worked with some of their junior national teams at under 16, 17 and 18 level. I'm a specialist in long-term athletic development, an educator for World Rugby on their strength and conditioning pathway. And my real passion is working with young athletes. I've got no interest in working with the pros, but helping young athletes chase down their dreams to become the kind of stars of tomorrow. So in terms of the backstory, how did I get into podcasting? So way back in around 2014, 2015, I left a really good job working in a sports academy in a school on the south coast of England for what I thought was a dream opportunity to get a PhD working in a pro sports team. After 2 months, I was very unhappy, both the working conditions and what I was expected to do compared to what I'd been told I should be doing. So I left. I was unemployed and eventually found myself working in private health in the centre of London, doing health assessments on bankers 6-7 times a day, repeating the same things over and over again in an office with no windows. So it's fair to say that I hated my job. So one of the things I'd been really passionate for a while was that youth athletic development angle. So I decided to start writing a written blog. I just started this on WordPress in 2015, and it was really just a place for me to vent and kind of, have a bit of a cathartic thing to kind of blog my thoughts on youth athletic development. And then I started doing an Ask the Expert segment where I basically would ask, someone working in the youth sports industry, their kind of perspectives and opinions on different elements. And that was really popular. And that blog ended up getting between 80,000 and 100,000 views over a couple of years. And one of the things that had been in the back of my mind for a while was transitioning to a podcast. And my brother was particularly enthusiastic about this and suggested to me to do it for years. So it actually took me probably 2 years before I really transitioned to a podcast format in September of 2019. So we're now 18 months later. I'm starting my third season, if you like, at the beginning of 2021. I've recorded over 70 episodes, clocked up about 18,000 downloads as of today, and have made loads of mistakes and lessons that can help you do even better than that in a much faster period of time. So I'm going to dig into the basics now. So first of all, why should you even consider starting a podcast, or what is a good reason to start a podcast? So the first one might just be curiosity and enjoyment. It's just a topic area that you're really curious on speaking to different people about or discussing. You might have already nailed down a niche or a targeted community that you want to serve and you want to deliver quality information to. To spread a worthwhile message is a really big one. That's a real passionate area of mine in youth athletic development, is trying to improve what we do and spread a worthwhile message that affects young lives. Fourth is to build reputation or authority in your particular area of coaching. Fifth, build a network. This one's been massive for me in terms of the network I've been able to create over the last 2.5 years. And then creating more opportunities. So this has been really big for me off the back of the blog and the podcast I've done, been asked to deliver coaching workshops, conferences, speaking opportunities, etc. Notice on here, none of these were about income. So a lot of people obviously think, podcasts and straight away think of Joe Rogan, who's obviously the best in the world at this and is creating a massive income stream for himself. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a viable option in terms of why you should start one. It's certainly nice if it ends up doing that. And it may well do. I do earn a small income from my podcast, but that shouldn't be your primary aim, because your primary aim in my perspective should be to serve your community or your spread your message. So let's get into the logistics. So how do you start a podcast? Well, the first thing I think is really important is to get crystal clear on who it is exactly you're aiming to serve, who's going to be your audience. And this is one of the mistakes I made initially, was that when I started my blog, I was basically writing in a way and speaking in a way that was just appealing to other S&C coaches. And after 6 months or so, or even a year or so, I realized I'm just in a massive echo chamber here. Everyone agrees with me. And actually, I'm not making any difference because I'm not speaking to sports coaches and volunteer coaches and mum and dad coaches, etc. So I had to change and pivot the way I spoke to target the right audience. So that's why it's really important from the outset to get crystal clear on who it is exactly you want to speak to, because you can avoid making that same mistake to me. So some things to think about. Are you going for a male or female market, or both? Any particular age brackets? Any particular geographical area? Whilst podcasting, obviously, is an international thing, you'll find that you maybe have a dominant area. So it might be the UK, it might be Australia, it might be America. Are you speaking to athletes, to the general public, to people in pain, to people who are working in the tactical side of things? So you need to be specific, have an avatar in mind. Is there a particular sport that you want to discuss, or a particular endeavor? Maybe it's rock climbing, maybe it's hiking, maybe it's basketball. What is the particular challenge or issue you're trying to solve? So for me, it's trying to improve the sport experience of young athletes. So to make it a positive sport experience, so that we reduce dropout and we improve the number of kids engaging in sports, so that we can produce more athletes of tomorrow. So what's the particular challenge for you? Is it to reduce or resolve knee pain or back pain? Or is it to bring strength and conditioning to the artistic athlete? Or what is it that you're trying to solve? And this picture on the right is really massive. This is important. If you try and market to everyone, you'll end up marketing to no one, because no one will resonate with your message. No one will find it interesting because it's too vague, it's too general. If you get super specific, those people, their ears will prick up and it will appeal to them, because it's like you're speaking directly to them. You know about their problem, you know about their interests, you know the geographical area, all those kind of things. They will become your kind of raving fans, if you like. So secondly, the logistics. So let's talk about technical setup. And this is where people get put off podcasting, because I think that you need this picture on the top right, which is Joe Rogan's studio, where he's got all sorts of fancy recording microphones, boom mics, laptops, monitors, etc. There's actually a ridiculously low barrier to entry for podcasting, and you probably already have everything you need. So if you have a laptop, a smartphone, or any sort of recording device, if you've got headphones, a Wi-Fi connection, and a free account on Zoom or Skype, you're probably good to go. The one additional bonus extra you might want to invest in is a podcast mic. I have a Blue Yeti Nano USB mic that cost about £100, and that's all I've spent on my podcast. But again, this might even be a nice to have and not a need to have. When I started my podcast, I just used a microphone on my laptop. Works absolutely fine. And I only did that to improve the audio quality. So actually the barrier to entry for podcasting is far lower than people think. If you've got a laptop, a Wi-Fi connection, and headphones, you probably have everything you need already. So what about editing and distribution? So first of all, I would reinforce, do not pay for something. There are a number of different editors and distributing tools out there. So Podbean, Buzzsprout, Blueberry, Transistor, SoundCloud are all available kind of distributors. The one I use particularly is Anchor FM, and there's a number of reasons for this. First of all, it's free. So it's a low risk entry point for podcasting. It's not going to cost you anything. If you decide after a couple of episodes you don't want a podcast, well, you've not spent a subscription for a year. It's got a really simple and easy to use drag and drop edit system. So editing a podcast takes me about 5 to 10 minutes maximum. The big one for me is that it automatically distributes to 8 platforms, including 3 of the biggest, which are Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. So for me, I would really recommend Anchor, and that's what I have recommended the people that I've mentored in podcasting to set up on, because it's a really simple entry point for getting your podcast recorded, edited, and sent out to the world. So step 4, and this is more around the interview style of podcast. If you are recording your own kind of monologue, then you probably want to go through the same thing. It just won't be with a guest. So for me, I have almost a prepared script when I'm interviewing a guest. So we have some general questions around their background, around how they got involved in sport, what their coaching philosophy is, what their why is for coaching. And then we get more into the specific questions around their specific discipline or domain, whether that's research, nutrition, strength and conditioning. What having that structure does is allows you to stay on course while also giving you the freestyle flexibility to go off course if a tangent pops up that's interesting and you can go down that route. But you can then come back on course or on topic by having that script kind of pre-prepared. It also allows your guests to be prepared for what's coming, so they can prepare answers that are going to be more useful for your audience. So how would you get started in terms of guests? My big point for this would be to start local. Start with people that you know, maybe it's coaches that you know or nutritionists that you know. Explain, first of all, what the aim of the podcast is and who your audience is, because this is essentially giving them a shop window to pitch to that audience. So for me, I explained that my audience is made up of grassroots sports coaches, like PE teachers, mum and dad volunteer coaches, sports science students, that the aim of the podcast is to get quality information from youth sport practitioners into the ears of grassroots coaches to improve what they do on a rainy Monday night. You might want to also explain why they fit. Said, I really liked what you wrote in this article. I think my audience would really enjoy it. Or I read your book on this. I think my audience would find that really useful. So you already have a kind of particular topic you want to discuss. So I'd love to speak to you about nutrition for squash athletes, or I'd love to speak to you about growth and maturation monitoring. And then I also ask for an image and a short bio. And then we talk about days and times, etc. So from that, we've got a bit of a script. We've got a bio image that we'll use for promotion. We've got a bio that we're going to use for a bit of an intro to introduce the guest to the audience when we record. So you've got your script, you've organized your guest, you've got your day and time. What happens now? So you've got two options. You can do it in person, probably not that useful at the moment with coronavirus, or you can do it online. And again, you've got a couple of options for that. You could use something like Zoom or Skype. I use Zoom. Why do I use Zoom? Well, it's free for 2 guests. There's a 40-minute time limit if you have 3 or more, but if you have 2 guests, you could go for hours on there, totally free. It obviously has a scheduling function that you can copy and send the invite to your guests. So they just click on one link and they're into Zoom. It's easy to start and stop recording, and it will automatically save both audio and video files to your device. So you've got a spit out of MP3 and video, which is really useful later on. So you can see on the right how simple it is to use Zoom. You know, the way I run an episode is have a bit of a chit chat with my guest off air, make sure they're comfortable. When we're good to go, I'll say, okay, I'm going to hit record now. Does it pop up on your side? Yep, all good. Okay, then we'll roll with the first question. Once you've finished, you just hit stop recording. This will then record to whatever folder you've set up. For me, I've set that up in a Dropbox folder under podcast, so I can find everything I need. So you've recorded your episode, you've got that audio. Now you're going to jump into Anchor, and once you click new episode, you'll see this little kind of format on your right-hand side. All you need to do is drop in your audio file. You can then add some music from transitions if you like, for your intro and outro, record any sort of welcome or bio directly using that red record function. So what I do now is record the intro to the episode after the episode. That way, if I fluff my lines 20 times, I'm not wasting the guest's time. I can go over and over and over again until I get an intro that I'm happy with. You can then edit directly. So any splits, any end breaks, any outro, anything like that, you can edit directly on Anchor just by clicking the 3 dots next to your audio file. So for me, the only edit I really make is editing out the bit where I'm checking that the guests can see that we're recording the episode. Other than that, there's very little editing involved. It's more just the drag and drop of the music, the outro, and my pre-recorded ads. You can then preview your episode, and then you can schedule it for release. So it's a really handy function. Again, that's entirely free. There's no charge on any of that function. So this is a bit more depth in terms of editing and publishing. So here's an episode that I recorded a couple of weeks back that's getting released next week. So literally all I would do if I wanted to edit the audio files, click on the 3 dots, and up will pop that 3-option kind of drop menu: edit audio, download audio file, or remove from episode. So if you click edit audio, what will pop up is this blue screen below where you can see the sound waves. And essentially all you're going to do there is add a split of the things you want to take out. You can bin that bit and then return to the main menu, save it, and it's kind of good to go. Or you can add a split, stick an add in between, and you're good to go. So it's a really simple drag and drop system, very low fuss, very low maintenance. Once you hit save episode, if you're happy with the audio, you'll then get taken to this screen on the right-hand side, which is basically all the background for your episode. So you can see I've got the episode title there from Gordon McClellan, Working with Parents in Sport, and then the title of the episode itself. And then you can see I've copied and pasted the bio that Gordon's giving me. to give a bit of background. And then underneath, I'll just highlight some of the key talking points that we discussed. So I'm kind of giving the listener a bit of an overview of what to expect and maybe a few of the most main interesting points. You can then allocate, season number and episode number with it. And then on the left-hand side, you can see the episode artwork that I've uploaded. And so that's it, edited and published and pretty much good to go. And you can see then you've got published date, and you can change that to schedule for any date you want. So you could publish it straight away, or you could put it off for a week's time, a month's time, and it will automatically distribute it at the time you set. So you can see here now on the top, we've got Gordon McClelland. His episode is edited and ready to go. You can see when it's created. It's not quite scheduled at that point in time, but you can see previous ones underneath that were scheduled as indicated by that blue clock sign. So remember I said originally that the Zoom spits out different audio and different files. So you've got your audio file, you've also got your video file. So basically it's giving you 2 file formats for free. So you might as well use that because it's only going to be 5 minutes extra work. So you've got your audio MP3 set up on Anchor, which is going to distribute to your podcast channels, to Google Podcasts, to Spotify, to Apple Podcasts. But then you can take that video file and upload that onto YouTube. So again, real simple. On your YouTube channel, if you go to YouTube Studio, you just hit that create button in the top right, and it will pop this upload videos. You select your video file, and that'll upload. And you will just add all those same things, episode description, clip out that little bit where you're checking if they're recording, and you're good to go. So from a promotion perspective, you can see some of my artwork here on the right. So I would recommend using Canva, which is what I use and a number of other podcasters use. I have a template here on this top right that you can see that I use for my episode covers. That's where the guest's bio image will go in, their name, the title of the episode, and maybe the company or institution they're from. So that's a template where really I just change the text week to week and the picture. So that's the cover image that you saw that I used on Anchor. It's the same one I'll use for a thumbnail on YouTube. And to do this, you can again use a bit of free software called Headliner. And you've got 2 options here, really. One is that you create a sound or audio wave over the artwork, like I've done there with the VJ Stanley episode. The second is to create a captioned video. And this is the one that I would really recommend. So if I was to go and start over, I wouldn't bother with the sound waves. I would just go for the captioned video. Unfortunately, I've deleted a lot of the previous video of old podcasts, so I can't go back and remake those. But from this point forward, any that I'm making, they go out on social media with that caption video. And the reason for this is it appeals to all the senses. You've got audio, you've got video, you can read it. If you're in a place where you're quiet and you can't have the audio on, it's much more engaging than the sound wave form over an image. And if you notice some of the really big podcasters or some of the really big social media gurus, so Gary Vee does this with his videos, Rob Pacey does this here with his podcast. This is all much more engaging format than having a sound wave or an audio wave over artwork. So this is what I would recommend. And again, on Headliner, you can do that quite simply. You just upload your video and ask for a transcript, and it will create the captions for you. You might just need to edit a few things if you've got accents that it doesn't fully understand. So then you can take this and instantly transfer it over to social media. So whether you decide to go with the audio wave or you decide to go with the caption video, you can post this to Instagram, to a main post or a story, to Twitter, to LinkedIn. You can put it on a Facebook story. And one thing I would really recommend is placing it in multiple Facebook groups, obviously things that are related to the topic. So if you're running a podcast on soccer, then join loads of different soccer coaching groups and post your things out there regularly. If you're in a different nutrition group, maybe you've got some weight loss groups that you're in, post them there. And the last thing is you can see on the Anchor kind of screen on that bottom image there, that's the public dashboard for the podcast. You can copy and paste the URL and you can put that into any post. So what I would do with Facebook and LinkedIn, for example, is I post a video with the kind of bio and the key talking points from an episode. And I'd also say, if you want to listen to the episode in full, click the link here and I'd have the URL. Again, all of this is completely free. Headliner doesn't cost a penny. Canva doesn't cost a penny. Anchor doesn't cost a penny. So you can literally do all these things for nothing. So then scaling the podcast. So the biggest thing, as with all social media, is consistency. So if you do it regularly, they reward you. If you're really hit and miss and you're doing once a month or once a quarter, it's not going to be as visible on social media or on podcast apps. The big one is obviously if you have guests, trying to get them to share it on social media. Obviously, if you're tagging them on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, they will tend to reshare that to their page. So you're then tapping into their audience as well. And you get a bit of kind of social kudos for being associated with that person. Another big one is listener reviews. So if you listen to my podcast, you'll see that I ask during the episode, at the end of the episode, if you enjoy this episode, please leave a review, because these do really help the podcast spread. So other coaches, other parents will see the podcast review, and that helps more people join up to the podcast and follow what we're doing. If you get positive feedback, so if someone tweets you and says, great episode, really enjoyed it, a really smart thing to do is say, thanks. If you have 2 minutes spare, would you mind leaving a review? You've made it simple. You've made it a short thing. Most people will say yes. The other thing is scaling, revisiting old content. So you've got evergreen content there from your first podcast episode onwards. So revisit that old content. So one of the things that I do, if you notice, is I try daily to repurpose old episodes to point people back to some of the old things. And I literally just started at the beginning and I've worked my way day by day, a different episode. This is because people will find your podcast on episode 20, episode 60, episode 101, and they haven't watched or listened to those original podcasts. So by you popping that up again on social media or whatever, that might pique their interest and they may go back and listen again. So you're kind of reusing, recycling that old content and pointing people back to some of the great episodes that you've already recorded that they might be interested in. The other thing then people kind of get interested in is obviously sponsorship. So this could be organic, like my relationship with Statera, who are specifically trying to solve a issue with managing youth athletes. So that obviously works with my topic area and my audience. Or you might find something that's a bit more institutionalized, like Podcorn, that provides opportunities for podcasters to get sponsorship on their podcast. So if I was looking back, what would I do to speed up my development and get to where I am far sooner? So I'm very confident now that if I was to start tomorrow, I could get to where I am now probably in a year or less. So the first thing is I should have started sooner. I dilly-dallied and waited 2 years before I got off the ground because I thought it would be complicated. I thought it would cost me money. I thought it would take too much time. I was wrong. I should definitely have started sooner. Secondly, when I first started, I used Skype, which is really poor, and then I would use an MP3 converter, and then I would upload. If I'd just gone to Zoom, I'd get better audio quality. It would create an MP3 for me. It would have cut a few of those things out of the chain. Originally, I used Audacity to edit, which was very time consuming, and that put me off. By using Anchor, actually, it's become much more time effective, much more user friendly, and much more simple. Originally, I had really poor cover artwork. I just had a headshot only. I didn't have a Canva template. So I would go back and do that again, where I have the podcast name, the title, the guest, their organization, and a headshot that just is a bit more visually appealing and draws people in. Originally, I didn't use Headliner, so I wasn't putting that stuff out to social media, even in Soundwave forms or the caption videos, which is definitely what I would start doing if I was starting tomorrow. And then finally, I didn't revisit old content. So that content just sat there for a year or so and did kind of get repurposed. So all those things, if I'd started doing those sooner, I guarantee I would have got to where I am a hell of a lot quicker. So the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. If you are thinking of starting a podcast, do it. Don't dilly-dally. Don't wait 2 years like I did, because I look back and think that was 2 years I could have invested in doing this and I could be further down the route now. So it's absolutely nowhere near as complicated as you think. You don't need to spend as much money as you think. You don't need as much equipment as you think. If you've got a laptop, a Wi-Fi connection, and a set of headphones, you're probably good to go. The other thing to remember is that the expert at anything was once a beginner. So when you first start, you will probably suck. And that's okay, because you've got to get your reps in. Just like anything, you have to earn the right to be good. So your first couple of episodes might feel a bit clunky, might feel a bit awkward. Certainly when I look back on my original episodes now, they're not my greatest pieces of work, but they were important steps on getting me on the track. So don't fear the reps that are going to be ugly reps. Don't fear the reps that are going to be awkward. You got, just like anything else, you got to get your reps in. Podcasting is the same. As you get more comfortable and you become more skilled as an interviewer, you will relax and things will open up for you. But you've got to take those first few awkward, clunky steps. So hopefully I've answered most of your questions. If I haven't, feel free to leave a reply or a comment below if you want something more specific. But I hope that's been helpful, and I hope that I've inspired you, if you've been dilly-dallying, to get started and start up your Anchor account, start up your Zoom account, get a few guests on, record a few episodes, and get moving on your podcast journey. So if you're interested in learning more about me or listening to my podcast, you can find the Athletic Evolution podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc. If you want to check us out on Facebook or Instagram, you can see the handles there at Athletic Evo UK on Instagram. And if you want to check out our website, it's athleticevolution.co.uk. So thanks very much for watching and listening. I hope that's been really useful. I'd love to get some feedback if you found that helpful and if you decided to take the plunge.